want to debate veganism, right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
feel like I don't know, the people you talk to on the street, I feel like not all the time, obviously, but some of the time it seems like they don't know much about what they're talking about at all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I would say that's most people. Just because they're uneducated, they're kind of doing their thing, and no one's bringing it to
Yeah.
their attention. So yeah. Is there a premise you want to start with, or do you want me to start how I normally start on the street? We could go from there, however you want to do it.
You can start however you want. Are you recording this?
I am. Yeah, I'm gonna record it, the audio.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
that all right?
Hey, yeah, yeah, that's all right with me.
Okay, cool. So,
Um,
oh, go ahead.
oh, you start. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So I'll start how I normally start. So, it's always good to define veganism. So I'll start defining veganism, or I'll start with the definition of veganism, and then pretty much if you're not vegan, I just want you to tell me what you disagree with. All right.
Okay.
All right. So veganism is an ideology that rejects the commodification of animals. Right. So that means you don't want to use them, abuse them, or kill them for food, clothing, entertainment, or anything else. Um,
Yeah,
so is there something about that definition that you disagree with?
I'd say that's a pretty reasonable explanation. Like,
So what I mean is, yeah, is there something about the definition that you don't align with? Because I'm assuming you're not vegan, right?
I'm not vegan. I've been on diets similar
Okay,
or like more extreme at times, but
okay,
probably the most miserable moments of my life.
okay. I can understand that. So, I guess the point of starting with that definition is to see if, um, like morally or from an ideology standpoint, if there's something that you disagree about that. Like, do you think it's moral for animals to be exploited, to be used as products, to be killed,
Of course
abused for
not.
food, clothing?
I don't think animals should be abused or murdered like they are in slaughterhouses, but the
Okay,
problem
so
with veganism I find is the culture behind it. And also that I feel like it's not really doing that much in stopping or preventing it, no matter how many
okay,
people you do end up converting to it.
all right. So so just so we find some common ground. So, would you agree with me that factory farms are immoral?
They're very immoral. I've done a
Okay,
lot of research on it. They're pretty
okay,
awful.
all right. So we're on the same page there. We can agree that factory farms are immoral. Okay. Well, number one, I would say that that's probably the biggest reason why you should be vegan. You know, if we're talking like 95, 98% of animal products are factory farmed, um, the majority of what you should be eating is whole food plant based anyway. So um, even by that, you know, if we're on the same page when it comes to that, based on your own morality, you should be vegan just to stop contributing to factory farms, right? If you think factory farms are immoral. Um, but separate from that, are we in disagreement? So, like for me, the intentional or unnecessary killing of a sentient animal is immoral. Do you agree with that, or you disagree with that?
I agree the unnecessary killing of an animal is illegal. Or not legal, but immoral,
Immoral.
sorry.
Oh,
I
okay.
agree that,
So
but you could also argue that it is necessary for food.
that's going to be the next thing then. So if you agree that um, the unnecessary killing of a sentient animal is immoral, then what you're implying is that something about um, using animals as food or other products is necessary for human survival. So I guess we could debate that. Do you want to break that down? Exactly what your view is there?
We could. So
Sure.
you could potentially switch everything to plant based if you got everyone in the planet to agree on that.
Uh-huh.
But even if you did, the amount of not only like the amount of animals you indirectly kill by only flame or by only farming plant life instead of animal life could also crash a lot of ecosystems. There are even some that get ruined by greed and making farms and like more like they kill millions of
Uh-huh.
animals. Also, I got a question.
Sure.
So, where do you define a life as? being like awful to take? Like, at what animal do you find that as not being important enough to try to save?
Yeah, so that would come down to the science. So whatever the science deems sentient, and of course there is a sentience hierarchy. So obviously, like in terms of importance, I mean everything with sentience should be morally considered. But like let's say bees or something like ants are deemed sentient, but they're at a much lower capacity than compared to like cows, chickens, pigs, humans. I would probably be okay to, with, um, like, I would save cows, chickens, and pigs over ants, just like I would save humans over cows, chickens, and pigs. That doesn't mean
Okay.
that if we're able to save them all, we shouldn't. It just means that if I had to choose, I'm going to go off of the hierarchy, right? I'm going to go off of which animals have the most capacity for sentience or suffering
Yeah, I'd
or
agree to some
whatever.
extent that some
But I
lives are more
wanted to,
precious than others.
yeah, I wanted to address what you said. You mentioned ecosystem. So the thing about factory farming, or the thing about animal products, so globally we slaughter between 70 and 150 billion land animals. Now that's not counting marine life. That's not counting even fish farms where we breed fish and keep them in captivity. Like not we don't they're not wild caught fish. That's just land animals, right? So that's anywhere between 10 and 20 times the human population. The animals that we slaughter, we're slaughtering at usually between a year and a half to like 3 years, some give or take, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending. So that means that every year we are feeding these animals enough food. We are providing them with enough water, resources, everything to get them old enough, to raise them long enough to be able to consume them. So when we're talking about like two things, when we're talking about ecosystems, number one, if all of the animal products that we're eating were wild, then again, I would still ask you to provide empirical evidence for the claim. But I could maybe speculate with you that, okay, if we stopped killing these wild animals, maybe some ecosystem here or some ecosystem there. But we breed these animals into existence. So whatever ecosystem problem we have already literally would not be affected if we stop factory farming. If anything,
Oh no, I'm not saying stopping factory farm. I'm not saying stopping factory farming would like. I'm not saying that would kill ecosystems. I'm saying farms, plant-based farms are killing ecosystems, or to some extent, not like an insane amount, but it is contributing to it
well, but
as
here's the
well.
thing. So if you're saying that plant-based agriculture is may contribute to like destruction of ecosystems or whatever it is, the reason why we farm so many crops is specifically for not just our population, but to feed to animals on top of our population, right? So even if you're concerned with deforestation, land use, ecosystems being destroyed, the
Yeah,
majority of that is happening due to the amount of animals that we have to feed just to kill them and eat them, right? So
you could.
that, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so like, even if that is the case where plant-based farming or crop agriculture um, may be harming or changing ecosystems, I would still say that going vegan, if the entire world went vegan and relied on crops, um, we'd still be way under what we were producing or what we had to produce to feed all the animals. So that would be my
So
argument. And I think the environmental, like if we look at the environmental statistics, which I do have some on my website, we could also, pull up some studies. Um, the inefficiency of beef to produce, the amount of land, the amount of water, the amount of crops it takes just for beef is like multiple times greater than something like wheat, oats, corn, things that are pretty calorically dense that can feed a lot of people. Um, and then separate from the practical standpoint, I would come back and say, okay, let's say that crop agriculture does affect some ecosystems. Um, does that justify um, raising and killing sentient animals? Right? Does it justify um, violating the rights of other animals that can feel pain, feel joy, experience life very similar to humans, if not identical? Um, because we can work on the ecosystem thing, right? We can have modern advancements that can help rebuild ecosystems that can maybe control plant life, animal life in those ecosystems without causing rights violations. But I would not say that continuing to violate the rights and cause harm to billions of animals every year is a good trade-off for potentially, having a better ecosystems or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's not justified. Although, to the same extent, you could also make the argument that slaughterhouses and whatever you want to call them could also be contributing to feeding animals. Not to the same extent as like because you're feeding horses, chicken, pigs, cows. Like you're feeding a lot with plant-based agriculture, but with the meat-based, you're also like slaughterhouses. You're going to be feeding most pets. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be feeding dogs, cats, uh, some extent, I guess, other things like lizards, but the majority of pets are typically a cat or a dog, and
That's true.
not all, but most people do end up feeding their cat or dog some meat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I haven't looked into the stats, but I'm sure like the pet food industry takes up a huge chunk of what's it called? The animal agriculture or the amount of animals being slaughtered. I'm sure it does contribute to that. But again, my view is I'm against pets as well. Like I understand that with the industry we have or with the situation we have, we've kind of overbred dogs and cats because again we have this system of exploitation of animals, so we've overbred them. So now it's either we take them in or we have to like euthanize them or they die, in shelters. So, but I would say going
So you're
forward,
against
I
all
would ban
pets,
breeding them.
or is it just like breeded pets?
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like I am. I don't think there's nothing immoral about like rescuing because, like I said, at this point, it's either somebody takes them in and takes care of them, or they're going to be euthanized, or they're going to get hit by cars, whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I would say the only reason why that's the situation that it is because of the breeding industry. So I'm completely against breeding. I think we need to
Yeah,
stop breeding pets.
I
That's
think
kind of
breeding
the
pets
only
is
way to.
terrible. Like it's awful, especially have you seen pugs? Oof, they
Yeah,
they look miserable.
yeah, and we
I definitely
create
agree with that.
monstrosities just because they're cute. Like people like it's like mad scientists come like mix breeds and try and make the cutest dog, but with very little function, and they have a whole lot of health problems. They die at early ages, um, and then they keep breeding them. So yeah, it goes into so like veganism isn't just about food. That's just the biggest one. That's probably the hardest one to convince people to drop. But veganism embodies everything, every aspect, whether it's clothing, whether it's pets, whether it's entertainment. Except most people, you know, it's just interesting how we, as a society, I think we have such an attachment to food. Makes sense because food is our life source. But compared to clothing, like no one's really arguing that we need leather or we'll freeze to death, right? Because it's pretty obvious that we don't. But with food, even when we have the best peer-reviewed research showing that you could be vegans, and even when we have vegans who have been lifelong vegans or vegans for 20 years, I'm almost vegan for 7 years, who are in great health or better health than when they started, people still like to hold on to it. So
Yeah, that's true. So you'd say veganism is it's obviously an ideology, but it's more of like you wanting to protect animals then, and not just from. So you'd say it's just protecting all animals is what your main goal is, right?
all sentient animals, including humans. So like
Yeah, of course.
my perspective is I think it's an actual bottom up issue as to why humans have been so discriminated against, so oppressed by other humans. Like I think if we're able to uh, understand that animals or other sentient animals deserve moral consideration and shouldn't be discriminated against just because they look different or they don't have as much intelligence, whatever it is, it would be logically impossible to discriminate against other people, whether it be different races, different sexes, different sexual orientations, whatever it is. It just wouldn't logically follow. Like, of course, somebody could do it anyway because they're psychotic or they have mental issues, but at least from a logical standpoint, no one
It
could
wouldn't
ever
be as
say
commonplace, you're saying.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think it wouldn't be as uh, big of a systemic issue as it is if um, if we started teaching kids about giving moral consideration to animals, then the human moral consideration would kind of just be a given from there.
Yeah. Just so the problem is with veganism is if you're also tackling like what's your opinion okay, let me ask this first so it's not like I'm just being an
Yeah,
idiot.
yeah.
What's your opinion on clothing, types of clothing? Cotton, for example?
On types of clothing, do you mean like animal-based
I
clothing
mean
or
the material they're produced with, cotton. Like for cotton farms.
what about them?
Oh, they the amount of like water they need to produce cotton that
Oh,
isn't
you're just talking about
recycled
like
very
what do I
well
think
and
about?
kills
Yeah, you're just talking about like what do I think about like the
yeah,
production of cotton or like other plant-based materials?
production of cotton that's made for like clothing because 90% like almost every single cotton plant is not utilized at all to how it could have been. Not
Yeah.
much of the water is recycled correctly or and it just destroys nearby areas.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I know where you're heading. I think I kind of understand the angle you're taking here. And I think I could address that with more of like a general statement. So, like, I think there's a difference between moral issues or moral atrocities and inefficiencies or harm being caused due to lack of advancement or lack of care, right? So, for example, what a lot of people like to bring up is like cell phones, right? So, like cobalt miners, how cell phone companies may use slave labor or very cheap labor to mine cobalt or to build these iPhones, whatever it is, right? And um, it sounds like that's kind of where you're getting at. You're kind of saying, well, what do you think about cotton farms that have a lot of inefficiencies that are underutilized that may cause uh, a lot of waste, whatever you want to say about them. What I would say is that I think there can definitely be so like I am in no way saying that crop agriculture is perfect. In fact, it's far from perfect. And I think the
Yeah, it
reason
kills like
why
7.3 billion animals a year.
yeah, yeah, and I think the reason why, and this is my theory, and I think most vegans would agree with me because we know how vegans operate. But my theory is the reason why it is far from perfect, at least when it comes to animal deaths, um, is because we live in a non-vegan world, right? So if we can't even extend moral consideration to animals that are being bred by the billions, being put in cages, being slaughtered, not given any care whatsoever, then why would we take the extra time to come up with a way to prevent more wild animal deaths in these crop fields? So, for example, I think it would be more than feasible to have some kind of device or some kind of machine that goes through these crop fields and either pushes the animals out or maybe emits a large noise that scares the animals away. We definitely have the means and the resources to be able to prevent a lot of those 7.3 billion deaths. We just don't because who would care about a rat in a crop field when we have 10 billion pigs being slaughtered globally, right? So I think that a lot of the inefficiencies we see with crop agriculture would actually, or a lot of the moral issues at least with crop agriculture, would be reduced in a vegan world. But to get back to the um, environmental issues, I would say that, yeah, I'm sure with cotton, with crops, with wheat, with soy, with anything, we could have more efficiencies. But that's kind of a separate issue than are these industries moral? Because I would say that producing cotton is moral right? It doesn't harm a sentient animal intentionally. It doesn't cause any intentional rights violations. There may just be inefficiencies, or we need more advancements, or we need to prevent more incidental deaths as a result of cotton production. But that's nowhere near, um, I would say, a moral issue like intentionally breeding, force artificially inseminating cows, taking their milk, ripping babies away from dairy cows. Like all of these issues, I would say, are um, actual exploitation, commodification of other sentient animals. Whereas with crop agriculture, it's incidental deaths.
I can see where you're coming from. I don't personally agree because
Okay.
they're going into something that they know is going to affect the wildlife. It's not like they don't know about how the cotton is going to affect the wildlife. It's the same as the lead-based gas. He knew that it was poisonous when I don't know if you know about that. Well,
I
uh,
don't know.
lead-based gas was like okay, so lead like in the 1920s, lead was like added to gasoline, which
Uh huh.
destroyed the atmosphere. And the person who did it knew it was going to happen, and he ended up killing more people than Hitler. Like he killed
But that's the thing
millions.
is like, yeah, yeah. So that's the thing is like, if somebody, so there's a difference between us having inefficiencies and somebody doing something malicious. So like, if somebody wants to sell a product, so let's say somebody comes out with a new antibiotic, for example, and that person who developed that antibiotic knew that it was going to cause cancer in X amount of people, yeah, that's immoral. I would say that that's causing a rights violation, or you're intentionally causing harm to people. Now, if you develop an antibiotic and with the intention of saving people's lives, and there are adverse effects, or maybe there's something that was miscalculated, I would still say that that's really messed up and really unfortunate, but that's not an immoral action. I would say that with new medicines, new advancements, there you could things could get messed up, right? It's kind of like a car accident versus intentionally mowing somebody down in a car. So if you're driving your car and I don't know, you take a turn and somebody's in the middle of the street and you hit them, for example, I would say that that's a car accident, right? You didn't intend to hit the person. It just the circumstances arose that you couldn't stop in time. They were crossing at the wrong time, and an accident happened. But that's different than you driving. You see somebody and then you intentionally drive them down. So to answer your question clearly, if you're telling me that what do you think of cotton farms where these farmers know how much damage they're causing and they're doing it anyway, then of course I'm against that. Like I'm not for damage with crops, intentional damage with crops when there are better ways to do it. But I would say that whatever damage happens through cotton farms doesn't really affect whether or not animal agriculture is moral or justified, right? So yeah, but if you're just asking generally, yeah, that's super messed up. I would agree. Like we got to work on that for sure.
Yeah, the problem is with the gas. He didn't originally know, which is what I feel like was similar to how the first couple cotton farms didn't expect
Hmm.
it to have such a wild effect on, well, like the, everything around it.
Hmm.
He didn't know about it at first, and then once he did learn, he didn't stop because it was already making him an absurd amount of money.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
So,
No, that's messed up. I
and
mean,
we could definitely, it's not the same as an antibiotic because you could definitely live without cotton. There's other things we could use and for like clothes, or at least use
sure,
less
sure. Yeah,
cotton.
I'm just using that as an example to show intent, not so much like equal, like
Yeah,
compare the necessity, but yeah. Again, my I guess my point is, I understand what you're saying, but that kind of is a completely separate issue than animal agriculture. Like the thing that I feel like a lot of people misunderstand, like when people comment and they say, well, crops do this, well, what about corn? Or, well, what about the environmental impact of this? I think we're forgetting that those industries can and should change and improve as well, right? So I'm not here saying, well, crop agriculture is perfect, no issues whatsoever, but we got to take down the meat industry. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the moral atrocity that is specifically factory farming, as well as I would say animal agriculture, That's first priority, I would say, when it comes to um, just morality as a society, right? I understand that, yes, we have production issues and inefficiencies that may cause harm or may cause things as a result. But when it comes to like, I can't think of anything worse morally than literally having billions of slaves that you essentially like forcefully make them reproduce, take their babies away from them, keep them for a year or two of their life, and then slaughter them, and then repeat the cycle year after year after year for no reason whatsoever when you could just eat rice and beans and other plant-based foods. So that's the thing is like I understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you. I mean, I would love to look more into those issues and if they're and do more with that, but uh, I don't think it's the same kind of um, rights violation or moral issue.
I could I could agree. It is definitely worse. It is definitely worse. But I feel like it'd be easier or more possible at least to focus on fixing the imperfections in agriculture, like agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
because you would to let's say you wanted to do a boycott of trying to stop people from buying meat. You would need millions, if not billions, of people to agree with you and follow that. And nobody buys meat, nobody buys cheese or milk or
Uh huh.
any vegan product. Do you think that that's possible to get
You mean
billions of
any?
people?
You mean any non-vegan product?
Yeah,
Is that what you meant to
that's what
say?
I
Like
said.
any animal product? Okay.
Yeah,
Um.
like, do you think it's
Well.
possible to get billions of people on your side to
Yes.
agree? Because that's the only way you'd be able to make it not a
Yeah.
profitable
Well, I'm going to
market.
compare it to this, right? So I'm going to make an analogy. I'm going to compare it to another injustice. So let's look at the American slave trade, right? So the American slave trade was perfectly legal and moral at the time, where pretty much Southern farmers and yeah, particularly I believe farmers were getting free labor, right, due to the slave trade. So um, two things, right? We can compare it to the crop thing as well as the what you asked just now, which was the boycott. So imagine making the crop argument first. So imagine you have this industry that's enslaving a group of sentient animals, right? In this case, it was African Americans or I guess Africans at that time. But in the modern day, it's pigs, cows, chickens. But they're enslaving this group of individuals, and instead of like there are people who are saying, well, um, these individuals are suffering. You're killing them. You're making them. You're forcibly having sex with them. You're taking away their family members. You're forcibly making them to work with no benefit to themselves. And then there's another group of people saying, well, hold on that. That's too hard to fix right now. Let's fix the inefficiencies in the cotton that they're picking, right? So like, you know what I mean? So like when we're looking at the
I
thing,
can see where you're coming from, but it's
yeah.
entirely different because I feel like it'd be considerably easier to try to convince a mass horde of people, hey,
Well, if you allow,
this
yeah, yeah, if you
human
allow me to
shouldn't be
finish my,
executed over this dog shouldn't be executed. If they committed the same thing, more people are going to be willing to take out an animal's life. Even though humans are also animals, it doesn't matter. It's because people are going to be more, whether I agree with them or not, they're going to be going after, they would rather kill the animal than the human.
sure, sure, sure. But just to finish that point, my point is, in that case, no matter how far fetched the goal is, right? It doesn't matter if 80% of Americans at that time would have supported in fixing inefficiencies in cotton farming versus 20 only supporting the refuting the slave trade. Which, by the way, at that time there was a lot of people. So the morally enslaving African Americans or Africans at the time um, was accepted. Like there were people speaking out, of course, but for the most part, then the goalpost started to shift more and more. But for the most part, when the beginning of the American slave trade, the majority of people supported it. So if you said it'd be an easier time, but that's kind of speculation. It's kind of besides the point. I would say that even if it would have been, 10,000 to 1 when it comes to speaking up against the slave trade, um, I still think morally people should speak out, and that should is what needs to be changed. So like I hear you. You're kind of saying, and I don't want to straw man you or make you have an argument you don't have, but it sounds like you're saying, well, the meat thing is getting people to stop eating all animal products and go vegan. That's going to be very difficult, take a lot of time, and may never happen. So wouldn't it be better, or wouldn't it be more efficient to focus your energy onto something that's more feasible in the short term? Is that kind of your argument?
I about say so.
Okay.
I think that how much die from slaughter farms again every year? Isn't it like 14 or 15 billion?
So globally, it's 70 to 150 billion.
I see. So I'm guessing that's more just America, or
Well,
probably just
yeah, yeah. Well, American slaughterhouses, we kill about 10 billion land animals just in America every year. But globally, it's 70 to 150 billion.
okay. I'd say
And that's
what I would say to some extent, obviously not the same amount, but like to some extent, you could save a lot of animals from focusing on something else first. Obviously, I feel like the problem is with stopping meat based products, or not just meat based products, but also milk and cheese and like any animal products in general, I guess, not meat products.
mhm.
Any animal, like stopping all of that production is going to be near impossible. And the only way it would be possible would be if it was declared illegal.
Yeah, which is the ultimate goal. So the ultimate end goal
Yeah,
is to regulate the killing of animals, which with enough support over time will happen. But you mentioned something very. I thought of something while you were saying that the feasibility, or you mentioned we could save a lot of animals by focusing on something else or in a short amount of time. Let me give another example, and I'm going to use the slave trade again, just because that's a very comparable situation to what the animals are in. Obviously, humans can suffer more, and I'm not saying they're equal, but it's comparable in terms of the situation. Um,
yeah, I understand. It's a good argument.
yeah, yeah. So let's say, and this actually might have been true. So this may have been true. So I'm going to speculate that it may have been true. So when the slave trade, when um, Africans that were enslaved were given their freedom, right? It was the emancipation or whatever they called it. When they were given their freedom, it could have been the case that by giving them their freedom, they actually ended up dying more than when they were um, kept by plantation owners. Because potentially, and again, this is speculation, but it's a hypothetical for this example, right? What if when Africans were given their freedom and they were let loose to go to the north, or to live on their own, um, because of the lack of opportunities, because of whatever it is, um, it actually caused more deaths. So, like Africans that were enslaved died at a slower rate than Africans that were free, right? Let's just say, for example. Um, Even in that context, right? Because that's more of a utilitarian argument of which situation causes less death. I don't care about which situation causes less death necessarily, right? So if Africans being free died more than Africans that were enslaved because they at least had shelter or had a slave owner who would give them food, um, I'm after getting rid of the rights violation, right? So I would rather give people freedom to live their own life, to do their thing, and then they die at a larger rate than have people be tortured, abused, um, forcefully sexually assaulted, whatever it is, but then die less, right? So in this example, um, even if let's just say that if we solve whatever cotton farm issue you're talking about, that resulted in less animal deaths. I honestly, unless the issues we're fixing are intentional rights violations, are the exploitation of animals, I would still focus on um, the ideology of veganism, which is not exploiting, not commodifying, and extending moral consideration and rights to other sentient animals. Because I know that in the long run, that's going to be a better solution. So that's what I would say. I would say that it's not about death, right? Everyone in the comments or online that are trying to make a hypocrisy claim, saying, well, this may cause more total deaths or that may cause more total deaths. Well, people falling off their roof may cause more deaths than murders. That doesn't mean that I don't like murder isn't worse than people falling off the roof. You know what I mean? Like I would say that murder is the more immoral action than people falling off the roof and dying, even though there's more death in that scenario.
I'd agree with what you're saying, although it was a bit of a weird example at the end. But
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
This is the first time you're giving me stuff, but I think if you need me to clarify, please ask. But I think I hope you know what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. You're saying it's more about the moral, like how moral it is for them killing things, and you want like torturing animals, than it is about the
Yeah,
like.
because even if we look at humans, like maybe the falling off the roof was a bad example, but let's get like something with like where they're free to choose. So like let's say diet, right? So for example, let's say that forcing people to eat the same food every day would result in less deaths than murders, right? I would still be for fixing the murder issue first before forcing everyone to eat the same food every day because of the moral atrocity that murder and homicide and everything else is involved, right? I'm solely based on morality, right? Do Would it be great? I think it would be fantastic if we can regulate food, if we can have everybody on the same page with nutrition to where there are less dietary related diseases. Absolutely. But I would say that's more of a system issue than a moral issue. I don't think it's necessarily immoral to give people free will to eat what they want, but I would say it's immoral to um, impede, like kill another sentient animal or abuse another
Yeah,
sentient animal or cause harm
I
to that
agree.
sentient
There's
animal.
also ways that you could get meat without killing anything. For example, lab-based meat. I don't know if you've done
I'm
much research into
totally,
that.
absolutely. So when it comes to meat, that's another thing. I'm not against people eating meat in a vacuum. So like, and some vegans disagree. I don't really understand those vegans because what we care about is the oppression, the suffering, the death of these animals that can feel pain, feel joy, experience things, right? That's what separates them from plants. So roadkill, I think is fine, right? If you find a freshly hit deer and they're dead and you want to eat that deer, I think that's kind of gross. But if that's your thing, you can go for it. But if you start mowing down deers with your car to eat them, that's the difference, right? It's the rights violation. But I don't see anything wrong with, you know, eating a dead deer or that you didn't kill, of course, or if you find a random unfertilized egg or something and you want to eat that egg, sure. Well, like why? I don't care. That's weird. Again, I personally have no interest in doing that. But when we're talking about moral issues, we got to be logically consistent, right? And to say that if I say that I care about the suffering and death of sentient animals, that's what I care about. I don't care about if um, dead animals are used after they're dead. Just like honestly, I don't care if dead humans are used after they're dead, right? Their family might care. I don't care. I don't see a moral issue with that. Um, so that's kind of the thing. And lab grown meat, as long as it doesn't harm sentient animals to create that lab grown meat, I'm all for it. I think that would be huge. I think if lab grown meat could come into production, um, I think that would be the push that veganism needs, to be honest. I think that would be,
Yeah, I feel like that's the most uh, possible way that veganism does come over would be
uh-huh.
lab-grown meat becoming more popular. Like I'm saying, like veganism, like winning over like the country or the world to where people don't really have slaughterhouses, or if there's much less of them, would be most people switching over to lab-based meat whenever that it when it does eventually come to the market.
Yeah, I think the biggest obstacle we have with lab grown meat is the fear mongering. So just like I don't know what your position is on vaccines, but just like how there's a lot of anti-vax fear mongering or anti-plant fear mongering, where there's no real scientific basis. I think even if we did develop a beautifully modern way of producing lab-grown meat that's 20
It
times
would
more
be
efficient.
fear-mongering, definitely.
Of course, yeah, I think all over social media, would people be like, it's fake, it's got microchips, it's gonna kill you, you know. So I think that would be an obstacle. But I think for most sensible people, they would switch over to lab grown meat for sure. But
Yeah.
and I'm open to ask any to answer any more questions, or I'm enjoying this. But I did want to get back to exactly like it seems that we're on a similar page. You're not like one of those
Yeah,
crazy
I'm not like
vegan
some
plant.
carnivore like the guy who's crying that he needs his meat. I could
Right, right,
honestly live
right.
without meat.
So my
But
question is, in that position, what's stopping you from going vegan? Like, what is it that is preventing you from going vegan? Because I want to help you in that situation.
the thing, I don't really eat much dairy-based products, not because of like any problems I have with it, other than I
Uh-huh.
just don't think they taste that great. It's because I
Okay.
can't really physically eat them. But I don't know. The thing is, I don't know. I was on a plant-based diet for like 6 months or so, a couple of
Okay.
years ago, maybe about 2 years ago.
Okay.
That I don't know. That messed me up physically. Like
Okay.
I was eating much less. I lost my appetite completely. Not saying that was because it was a lack of meat, probably because it was a plant-based diet. There
Okay.
was no like you couldn't have added sugars, you couldn't have pretty much anything. It
Oh,
had to be like basically straight plants.
there we go. There we go. Okay. 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 So that was going to be what I was going to ask you, but I appreciate your honesty up front. Um, I think that the number one detriment to veganism, honestly, as of now, the number one detriment are people who are very heavy on social media, but are pushing something that is either unattainable or actually nutritionally deficient, but it looks kind of good on social media. So, for example, when I first got into veganism 6 years ago, I was junior in high school or sorry, senior in high school when I started researching it. Um, all over social media, you see raw vegans. And raw vegans are essentially people who eat nothing cooked. So they eat nuts, fruits, and veggies. And most of the raw vegans that were on social media, I don't even know how many nuts they ate. It was mostly just raw fruits and veggies. And the problem is when you go from eating enough calories to and enough fat and enough protein to just eating mostly plants, like mostly salads, mostly fruits, mostly whatever it is, you might feel good at first, right? So maybe the first month you might feel better because you are like not eating so much processed stuff or you're eating less like fatty meats, whatever it is. But anything past that, you're going to start to feel really bad. You're going to drop weight. You're going to lose nutrients. So a lot of raw vegans or vegans in general who undereat, they end up losing their hair. They end up getting very undernourished. They end up messing up their digestion because they're over consuming fruit. Because most people, a lot of fruits are heavy on fructose. I actually had a similar experience of mangoes. Um, if you, I was consuming a lot of mangoes, and when you overeat fructose, most people, it doesn't really sit that well like when you're digesting it. It's pretty hard on your digestion. So if you're eating a bunch of mangoes and you're having digestion issues, um, that's kind of to be expected. Like there's workarounds. So what I would say is if you did go plant based, but with that plant based diet, you also eliminated a lot of plant based options, whether it be whole grains, whether it be, like you said, sugar, whether it be other fats, whatever it is. That's primarily the issue. Um, it's really people who try a diet that don't take and I'm not blaming you necessarily. I'm not saying that you should have known better or anything because there's not enough resource, right? There's
Oh,
not enough
I was
education.
forced on the diet. I was a minor at the time. I, I was forced on
Oh,
the diet for 6 months.
like
I wasn't necessarily against it, but when I did want to stop, I was not allowed to stop.
oh, okay, so that's already bad. Yeah, that's already bad. Yeah, and it sounds like whoever was making you eat this diet clearly had no idea what they were doing because the the last thing you want when you change food, apart from like placebo, which I don't think it was placebo, but apart from like just change of habits or placebo, is to drop weight and to feel worse, right? Especially if you're not overweight. Like if you're overweight and you lose a little bit of weight, that's normal. But if you're already skinny or if you're already in a healthy
I
weight,
was I was already underweight. I'm currently like about 20 pounds underweight. I'm
right.
working on it, but
And that's the
yeah,
thing is like if you weren't eating like if you're talking about to like maintain weight, if you weren't eating nut and nut butters, if you weren't eating whole grains like rices, pastas, you know, those are the things, oatmeal, you know, cereals, soy milk, like these things that are cooked is are it's essential for vegan diets. I would say technically you could do it raw and with supplementation. But I just why make people give people that idea when the majority of them aren't going to take the time to do it properly and end up starving themselves?
yeah. The problem, I don't know. Also, another problem is not obviously not. If you're a good cook, you can make anything taste good to some extent.
Uh huh.
Most people are going to be awful at cooking and they're going to make terrible food. And that's what's going to stop a lot of people from being vegan because they're not going to be able
Sure.
to make good food without meats or milk or cheese. That-
Well, yeah. I
Something
mean
you could,
that's yeah. I mean I would say if your diet mostly consists of like beef and cheese, for example, I would say that like you should still change. Like, obviously, from a taste aspect, yeah, that might be difficult. But if your diet mostly consists, or if your palate mostly consists of like a beef and cheese palate, you're probably not in good health, and you probably should change your diet anyway. But
definitely.
what I would say is, I don't know if you watch, I don't know how much on my channel you explore, but I have a full day of eating. I don't eat I don't cook like I don't really do much that's different than a meat-based diet. I'm eating peanut butter sandwiches, cereal, a little bit of fruit, apples, oranges, bananas, and then pasta for dinner. Like these are all things that most people eat. They just always include meat. Like it's never just pasta or protein pasta with nutritional yeast. It's pasta with beef, or it's never just it's not cereal with soy milk, it's cereal with dairy milk, or it's like and
Definitely. Definitely.
the basic meals that we have: whole grain bread, peanut butter, pasta, nutritional yeast, soy milk, flax seeds, nuts, all of that gives me all of the nutrients I need. If you look at my I have a reel on my Instagram. If you look at my nutrition, what I track, I'm getting over 100% of all of my nutrients: B12, iron, calcium, vitamin D, um, vitamin A. All of these things are very readily available in just basic foods. So, like, even if you're a bad cook, believe it or not, I recently started cooking because I'm trying to save money. I'm trying to get married in about a year, so I'm trying to save
Yeah.
money. But I didn't cook for the past year. I didn't cook a single dish because again I do want to be healthy, but I was busy and there's a lot of great pre-made meals that are still relatively healthy in terms of like low sodium, low saturated fat, stuff like that. I did not cook a single thing. I was getting pre-made soups. I was getting pre-made burritos. I was eating cereal. I was eating like fruit and nut bars that were already bought, or sorry, already made. So I didn't cook a single thing, and I was still getting all my nutrients. So even if you're like a horrible cook, um, you can easily find pre-made vegan dishes in major supermarkets: Stop and Shop, Market Basket, where I live, Walmart. They all have them. So again, I think most people that say that, it's really um, I would honestly say it's a lack of commitment, because once you actually go and you look, like you take the time, right? Because when I went vegan, I went vegan overnight, but that was after 6 months of nutritional research, understanding what I needed, and um, I didn't do it perfectly right away. I went vegan overnight. At first, I underate, so I had to increase my calorie intake. Then I was eating too little fat, so I had to increase my fat intake. Then I realized I was eating something that had gelatin the whole time, so I had to take that out. Like, this is not a same thing with regular diets. This is not a go vegan and all your problems are solved. Same thing with regular eating. Like, people will eat foods, people drink dairy when they're lactose intolerant their whole life. Like, this is not a with any diet, it's a trial and error. It's a, okay, my digestion has changed now that I'm 45. Maybe I need to eat something different. So it's really just playing around with it. But if you have it in your mind, if you are consistent with your morals and you say, okay, I do not want to contribute to this, anybody can be vegan. I don't know of a single health condition that requires meat. Um, and
I,
there is a workaround to everything. Sorry, go ahead.
I think there might be a health condition that is rely on meat, but it's probably very small amount of people that have it.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, if there
not
is,
100% sure. I'm 90% sure that there is a health condition that relies on meat.
the only thing I could think of, so like when we're talking about meat, we're talking about not the flesh of an animal. We're talking about the components in meat, right? So like one of the biggest things I know that separates meat from plants, like heme iron. So meat specifically has heme iron, plants don't. Um, there is more bioavailable vitamin A. So vitamin A in meat is in the form of retinol. Vitamin A in plants is in the form of beta carotene. So that could be different. So the only thing I could think of is if somebody has a condition where they convert these things at such an inefficient rate that consuming meat would fulfill that, like would directly nourish those vitamins, whereas their conversion just doesn't work. But even in that scenario, they could just supplement. They could just get a shot, or they could take a pill, or whatever it is, of like 2,000% of vitamin A. So even in that scenario, right? Because when we think about food, whenever I hear, well, some people need meat, we're not actually talking about the flesh of the animal, right? When somebody says, well, broccoli is good for you, they're not talking about broccoli. They're talking about the components that the broccoli or the meat is made of. So as long as those components can be fulfilled, there should be no condition that I know of that would require like the flesh of the animal specifically.
Yeah, they definitely could use like unless if they have like awful allergies to like 90% of things, which is very unlikely. It's very unlikely that someone has those problems.
That's true.
But
That's true. But even for that, so even for that, have you ever heard of Huel or Soylent?
you, sorry, what did you say? Say that again.
Oh, sorry. Have you heard of Huel?
Huel?
Yeah,
Uh,
Huel.
isn't it like some sort of? I can't remember. It sounds. It could. That sounds like some sort of nutrition. I've
Yeah,
seen
so
something on
Huel,
Instagram, maybe like an ad or something, but I don't remember
yeah. So like
entirely what it
Huel
is.
or Soylent is a meal replacement essentially, and I think specifically Huel, it's got like 27 essential vitamins and minerals, and it's free from most, if not all, major allergens. So like even in the event that you're allergic to everything, let's say you're allergic to eggs, dairy, soy, wheat, FODMAPs, whatever you want to say, whatever you're considered allergic, we still have the technology to fortify a pretty much a chocolate flavored smoothie for you to drink 3 times a day and still get all your nutrients and still not have to kill animals, right?
You
So
definitely
like,
do. But the main problem with that would be price for some people. Not obviously not all people, but there are going to be some people that are going to be not very well off, or not even. You don't necessarily have to be well off for it. But for example, the milks, like
uh,
soy milk is I don't remember exactly how much, but it's something like around like $40 for
yeah,
a half gallon,
it's about I think it's $4 or 4.50, something like that. Yeah.
something like that for like a half gallon, and then for an entire gallon, or yeah, a half gallon I think.
Uh-huh.
And then for a full gallon of whole milk, it's like what, like $3 or 250 or 280 or something.
Maybe, but let me ask you a question. So, because I just want to know where your starting point is for like affordability. How much do you think? So let's say somebody's making minimum wage, right? Somebody's making twenty five
It
thousand
depends
dollars a
on the
year.
state.
Um, okay, sure, that's true. But um, let's say generally, right? We're talking about somebody who would be considered. very low middle class or like in poverty, let's say, right? So they're not homeless, they're living paycheck to paycheck, but they're in the poverty. They're making 35,000, well, just generally, right? What would
Yeah,
you consider what would you consider affordable for their daily limit for food? Like what they would spend a day on food.
let's be real. You're probably not going to be spending much on food. Some people are going to be spending very little. It depends not only on your how much you're moving around for whatever job you have. It's going to be burning a lot of calories. So it does depend on that. Also depends on your baseline like metabolism. Some people have completely different metabolisms based on like just their body. Could be
Sure,
the way
sure.
that
Well,
it
okay, let
processes
me
food, could
let me
be their
clarify
brain.
yeah, let me clarify then. So, living paycheck to paycheck, um, they work 40 hours, and they need 2,500 calories a day. So not 2,000, a little more, 2,500 calories a day to maintain their weight. How much would be too much for their daily spending limit on food? Like, what's that number? Because when you say that not everyone can afford soy milk, I want to get an idea of where that's coming from. Like, what's your baseline for what's too expensive?
Okay. So I'm gonna go off of what they could possibly spend for food.
Yeah,
Like what I think they could possibly spend for food. For
yeah,
rent
exactly.
here, for rent here, let's say they were in an apartment. For rent here in Oregon,
Hmm.
uh, it's about I believe it's for if you're going to go into a three-bedroom apartment with two other people, so you were splitting the rent three ways.
Uh huh.
Although this isn't going to be most, but that would be a very cheap option in comparison to like having a one-bedroom apartment that you go in by yourself or something.
Okay.
Let's say there was a three-bedroom apartment with three people, all sharing rent. It's about, I believe it's 3,000 overall per
Yeah, so
month.
about
Then
1,000
you're
person.
splitting
Okay.
it, so yeah. So then you're going to be adding in utilities. Uh, if you have a car insurance,
Hmm.
phone data, like paying for that as well, as long
Okay.
with groceries, water bill, electricity, pretty much all the other expenses. You're
Well,
probably going to be around.
groceries would be food, so don't count groceries because that's what we're looking at. So
Oh yeah,
separate
yeah.
from
So let's
yeah,
not count groceries. It's probably gonna be somewhere around what do you think, like 1,700, 1,800? Depends
yeah,
on
yeah.
where
That
you
sounds
are.
about right. So it's 1,000 for rent, car and car insurance. Let's call it 400. Call it utilities 200, so that's already 1,600, and then call it yeah, like phone bill, internet, whatever. Call it an extra 200, 300. So yeah, we're looking at 1,800, 1,900 probably
Yeah,
for their
somewhere around
that's their
that.
monthly expenses, not counting groceries.
Yeah, and then
Hmm.
you're gonna be well. Let's say they're making what how much you say before? 35,000 a year.
Yeah, something like that.
If you were adding around like, let's say it's 1,850, so it's easier to
Hmm.
like have a consistent number on.
Uh huh.
If you were adding in that for every single month of the year, they would definitely have money left over. Like for example, let's see, it would be sorry, it would be like 22,000 about
Okay.
22,200. So you definitely would have money left over. But how much? Let's say you had not everyone. Some people are gonna have student debts. Some people are gonna have multiple people. They could be living with their family.
Uh huh.
So which is another problem because you're not most likely if you are sharing rent, it's gonna be with one other person or something. If
Okay.
you're like living with your spouse and you have like some kids or something, you're probably gonna have like I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't be in a three-bedroom apartment at that point, but you would be if you if you were living with three or with two other roommates, like friends. This is the
Okay.
best case scenario. In a three-bedroom apartment, it would cost you about 22,000 a year,
Okay.
and then yeah, you definitely could spend. How much money would you say you spend on groceries
Yeah,
actually?
I'll make it
Since you
easier. Yeah,
do,
I was gonna say I'll make it easier. So, um, to give you an example, what I spend on groceries, especially now because I'm looking to save money, I get 20. I use 2,500 because I was gonna compare it to me. I eat 2,500 calories a day. If you look at my nutrients chart or if you look at my tracker, I get 115 grams of protein. About I get 69 grams of fat. I get 420 carbs, right? I get everything in range. I probably get more protein than you even need, but everything in range. All my nutrients
how much
are
protein you say we had
sufficient.
again?
I'm sorry, what?
Or how much protein you say you had again?
115.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So all of that, enough calories. Okay. This I went grocery shopping yesterday. Um, because I eat whole foods, so peanut butter, bread, oats, even soy milk. I get 2 things of soy milk. Um, Fruits like apples, oranges, bananas, affordable fruits. Um, I spent $60 on a full week of groceries, right? So that's not even $10 a day. So when we're looking at food, right, and we're looking at food costs, no, that's not even, sorry, that's not even $7 a day. No, sorry, $10. Yeah, sorry, for the 7 days a week. Sorry, it's not even $10 a day. That's like I don't know, 9.25 or 9.10, whatever it is a day, right? Um, so when we're looking at the cost of food, soy milk may be more expensive slightly than dairy milk, but we would have to compare the cost of like a whole food plant-based diet to the cost of um, a grocery list with animal products, right? And there was actually a study out of Oxford University where vegan diets were on average 30% cheaper, and that's in first world countries. So that's not comparing third world, but first world countries like America, like the UK, like whatever, um, 30% cheaper vegan diets. So when we're talking about $9 a day for food, right? I don't know how much cheaper it can get. Like it can get cheaper if you're eating like Taco Bell. Like you get 2 Taco Bell burritos for $6.
Yeah.
That's two. That's a no. That's still only 1,000 calories. Okay, maybe with meat and all that stuff, you could get up to 2,000 calories for like $5 at Taco Bell or something, or 10, but whatever it is. But I'm talking about like to get a nutritionally adequate diet. We're talking not even. I'm talking about more nutrient dense than probably the majority of the country eats for $9 a day. And that's the thing is like, I think where people get this idea is A, they've never looked, and B, there's a lot of misinformation, right? Like when people think, when I say, oh, vegan diets, you should go vegan, people say, oh, I can't afford that. It's like, really? Oh, I didn't realize you actually tried to do the math and afford it. Why couldn't you afford it? Meanwhile, they're probably spending a few hundred, probably $100 or $200 a week on groceries, depending on who I'm talking to, of course. But obviously, I'm talking to somebody in poverty or homeless, definitely not. But the people I'm mostly talking to are middle class or up. Um, so that's the thing is like, it's not more costly. It is if you're going mock meats, like Beyond Meat is kind of expensive, but
Yeah, I mean,
Beyond
pretty
Meat,
expensive.
yeah, but Beyond Meat compared to like high quality beef, definitely not. So it just depends on what you're looking to do. And there's so many cheap varieties and different ways to do it if you're on a budget. Again, $60 a
Yeah,
week, that's like $240 a month. By
I'm
by doing Whole Foods, I cut my grocery bill by more than half.
you shop at Whole Foods?
No, by doing a Whole Foods.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
sorry.
yeah, no, Whole Foods is expensive. Anytime I go in there, I don't spend anything less than $100 because there's so many like I go to Whole Foods when I want to eat like vegan junk food because they always have a ton of like vegan desserts and stuff.
Yeah. I'm surprised you spend so little. I shop at Wooden Co.
Uh huh.
And I probably around 100 or 120 a week. I don't really waste much money on it either. I
Yeah.
eat a lot of food. My metabolism is actually kind of insane.
Uh
I
huh.
eat somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day, and I'm losing weight sometimes.
Wow.
But
Okay. But that kind of makes sense. Like if you think about it, if I'm buying for 2,500 calories a day, you're buying for 3 to 4, right? You would expect to be almost double, a little less than
I
double.
guess that's true. Yeah,
But the other thing is also like the grocery store I go to Market Basket. I don't know. You said you're in Oregon.
yeah. I'm in Oregon.
All right, I'm in Massachusetts. So Market Basket is especially affordable where I am. I find compared to like Stop and Shop or Whole Foods or anything else, it's generally more affordable. Um, but and also
What's
I
minimum
eat
wage there?
minimum wage in Mass.
Yeah,
think it's 15 now. It could be
Oh,
more.
really? It's 15 here in Oregon. I'm
Yeah,
surprised.
it's 15
But
here. Um, but yeah, Mass is crazy expensive too. I don't know what it's like in Oregon, but Mass is pretty expensive in terms of
it's
living.
pretty expensive here.
Yeah,
It's
but so
in
that
some things.
yeah, that's part of why I'm trying to cut costs. But also I'm especially being frugal. Like I'm okay with bland foods. I'm okay with like eating the same stuff every day. So like for
Yeah,
me,
I
I'm
almost everything I eat is something I make myself. I typically only buy mostly like massive amounts of frozen vegetables. Maybe I'll buy some frozen chicken, and then I'll like heat it up in a crock pot or something. Like that's kind of like the majority of things I get are frozen foods
uh-huh.
or something that I heat up and then cook, or fresh vegetables if they're a good deal.
Yeah,
Most of the time,
yeah.
it's cheaper to get like a massive pack of everything.
And that's the
At least
thing
at
is like
retail.
and that's the thing like what I always tell people because I'm going to be honest with you. It sounds like you do align with veganism for the most part. It sounds like your hesitations are with nutrition because it sounds like you had a pretty traumatic experience. So I don't blame you. Like it sounds like you, that sounds real messed up. So I'm definitely sorry to hear that was the case. So it sounds like you have, definitely working on your health, right? You said you're underweight. So it sounds like you're scared of getting more underweight. You had that traumatic experience. So I don't blame you for having that position. But that's why activists are important because I'm here to tell you like if you did everything the same but just took out the meat. So like whatever you're eating and you replace the same amount of calories of that meat with something nutrient dense like peanut butter, lentils, black beans and rice, whatever it is, not only can you get just as much protein, but you're going to actually taking out the saturated fat and cholesterol that's in meat, and you don't have to contribute to factory farming. If you, what I would say is if you align, because the reason why you want to boycott it is for your own morals, right? If you don't align with it, then I'm going to test you on that again. We could go back to that. But if you align with it, which it sounds like you do, that's why it's worth still experimenting and trying to do it, just doing it properly.
I definitely agree with your beliefs on it. The problem is, I don't know. I wouldn't mind trying it sometime later, like for another month or something, but with more of an actual plan and not some
Yeah.
awful. But the
And that's
main
the thing,
problem I
dude.
still have with it is I feel like
Sorry,
if
go
I
ahead.
did do it, if I did do it for the rest of my life, I never ate chicken or beef or milk or cheese or anything like that. It wouldn't actually contribute to anything because I feel like that would just be a different person buying up what I would have bought.
Okay, okay. So I've got a killer argument for that. So I'll tackle that. But I was gonna say I'm serious. Like I always tell people who I talk to, if you need nutrition help, like if you need help, I'm an open book, and most activists are, but some of them are really busy or whatever. But I'm like starting out. I am an open book. I will help you with a plan. Like if you tell me the foods you like, you don't like, I will literally do it for you because I want people to go vegan that badly. Like I will do it, and or I'll show you how to do it. And that's the thing is like you can do all this in on your phone like with something like Chronometer, which is the tracker I use, you can eat your animal products for a month while you are figuring out different combinations of meals, putting in the tracker. Oh, how many calories would I eat here? How many nutrients would I get here? See what foods work best for you. And then once you have that figured out, go vegan. And then now you know what you're eating, now you know what you're getting. There's no doubt, there's no placebo effect where you think you're under eating because you have it all nailed. And then from there, once you get used to that, then you can have fun with it. Like I like to eat the same stuff every day, but when I'm on vacation or when I like a few times a month, um, I'll go out or I'll try something different or I'll make some, like I'll do whatever I want, and I still know that I'm going to be okay health wise. Um, but to answer your or to uh, refute your concern about other people who do it, again, look at this as any other injustice, right? Imagine using that for murder or sexual assault or child abduction, right? Imagine saying, well, I don't really see the point in not murdering. Somebody else is just going to murder. So why would I stop doing it when other people are just going to do it anyway, right? That we should be focusing on getting everybody to reduce and to stop altogether. But at the end of the day, this is a personal thing. Like this is a like how we get the ball rolling is it takes individuals, just like the civil rights movement. It takes individuals to say, you know what, I don't agree with this. This harms people or individuals that I don't want to see harmed, and I can't do it. My conscience is constantly telling me that this is wrong, and I don't want to do it. Right? It takes that effort, and again, at the end of the day, like we could have this whole talk. I could help you in nutrition, but if you don't care, I don't like if people don't care. I don't expect them to change. But then, if you don't care, that's your position. Your position is, I know it's wrong. I agree with you. I don't care. That's fine. That's the person you want to be. That's up to you. But don't also come back and start making arguments. Not saying you. I'm just saying in general. Start making
Yeah.
arguments of, well, I need meat, or well, animals aren't really suffering that much. Like if you don't care, you don't want to change, then be honest, say that, and then move on. But if you genuinely want to, like if you're a truth seeker where you want the best diet, you want the most moral position, and you genuinely do care, then I mean that you've got to make the change. That's really what it comes down to. And it's you could take whatever time you need. You could reach out for help. You could do whatever, but that change has got to be at the forefront, right? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. I did. Okay. This is from what I stand on, from what I see for it. I think personally, I think that what you're doing is right, but like with not eating meat, I don't think it should be as like slaughterhouses. Obviously, they just shouldn't be still running. Do you think, like for example, with with the lab meat, do you think without lab meat, do you think it would be possible to actually
Um,
incorporate it where people stop eating it entirely,
I
or at
I
least
do.
having it being banned?
Yeah, I do because if you look at any other injustice, I know that you say, well, that's more feasible, but at the time it wasn't. So like at the time, giving women the right to vote seemed just as far fetched and just as ludicrous as trying to get people to stop eating animal products, right? Like now we could look back on it and be like, oh ho ho, well that was an easy one, of course, but it took women what hundreds of thousands of years to get somewhat of an equal playing field. And even now, there's still issues. So back then, before women had the right to vote, people were fighting and protesting and getting arrested and like risking their lives to get people to change. So I do think even without lab grown meat, I do think eventually with enough fighting with because I know that logic and the science is on our side, right? Logic and the science is on our side. It's inevitable. Things are going to change. It's just
As science
how.
progresses, it's definitely going to slowly, if not like quickly, like it will definitely, in my opinion, I think as science advances, it will slowly start taking meat out of like slaughterhouses,
Mhm.
like start slowing down slaughterhouses to some extent.
Yeah, but even
I definitely
again,
agree with
even
that.
if there was an alternative, like again, if we look at the slave trade, there was no alternative to free labor, right? So the Southerners that wanted to continue using free labor, there was no alternative, right? They were pretty much being told, hey, you've got to give up your free labor and start paying people. It's not like they had a lab grown free labor, right? They literally had to just give it up. And of course, I mean, there was the Civil War and there was a lot of fighting. Um, but eventually, what is moral, what has the most logic, the most reasoning on its side is going to prevail. Now, whether that'll take 50 years or that'll take 1,000 years or that'll take however many years, that's up to people like you, right? That's my point. Is like if you want to see a change and you're feeling hopeless, look, believe me, I feel hopeless. Like you got to hear some of these talks I have that aren't even recorded with people on the street. Like we're talking like the lowest IQ, um, the lowest possible way of thinking. That the worst excuses that you could possibly think of. But it will change. Like it's inevitable. Like it definitely will change, and it depends. Like that's why I want to talk to people like you and people like um, some other people, like sensible people who can recognize that it's wrong, can recognize that we have to care about this, but are just kind of stuck. Whether it's nutrition, whether it's fear, whether it's laziness or lack of don't want to change, because we can help with that. That's easy. Once you get that animals deserve moral consideration, all of those practical limitations, those are easy because once you understand nutritional science, once you understand how to eat plant based, it's like it's not, I don't even think of steak as food. Like if you gave me a steak, I wouldn't like I when I see steak, I don't think food. I don't think when I see a glass of milk, I don't think dairy. I don't think calcium or protein or like I literally reject it because I know that I don't need it. You know?
I understand. I think one problem with the slave trading argument, though, not
Uh-huh.
necessarily disagreeing with it. I'm just saying one problem with the argument, saying it's similar to slave trading and how that will
Yeah.
prevail the same way slave trading did. It also back then there was also a very like, for example, Abraham Lincoln. He was incredibly persuasive,
Absolutely.
and there may be people who are more there may be people who are more persuasive nowadays, but also even if some it was significantly less popular, obviously, for someone to be so what's the word like influential. So
Uh-huh.
it was more of a like it was more important than things he said, even if he was less influential than people nowadays, which he I don't you could argue that. You could argue it both ways because in some ways he's like forever written in history, in other ways, like I'm saying for the current generation.
Sure, but look, all it takes is one. Like veganism will have its Abraham Lincoln, will have its Martin Luther King, will have its Gandhi, will have like any social movement. I don't know what I think I'm gonna seem like a sexist now. I don't know about what women were fighting were women suffrage. To be honest with you, I know there were some
I'm not really sure. It was Martha. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure
what
either.
was it? Yeah, forgive me, please. If I'm gonna do some
No,
research on
no,
this.
it's all right. I
Well,
don't
I'm
really
not
know
just for
either.
you. I'm saying this for if anyone
Oh yeah,
is
yeah.
listening to this, I'm gonna seem like a misogynist. But yeah, like veganism, um, we will have like there are big figures who have converted. Like almost me and every other vegan activist has what's his name? Um, oh my God, that's so bad. I totally forgot his name. Um, we all
Is it
have
like
like
some sort of like influencer or something?
yeah,
That-
it's we all have like the vegan that or like the vegan activists that like kicked us off, right? So whether it's
yeah.
like because I have more newer people, but then there's okay, hold on, this is really gonna bother me. What is his name?
The argument I was making with Abraham Lincoln was that there wasn't as many influential people out. There wasn't as popular for someone to be influential or have a real like people they could like amount of people like they could talk to not necessarily a fan base but like a group
Yeah.
of people that that like follow them.
So you're saying that
So
everything's kind of muddy because of like social media
yeah,
or because of
yeah, because of more social media you think could be easier to convert people, but it actually is going to make it harder
of course. Oh
because
no,
there's so many people on there.
100%, 100%. But I do think that like people who do care and people who obviously like the problem with social media is there are people who are just not going to get it Like they may be less intelligent, they may have a lower IQ, they may have less resources. Like I'm not even
You
talking
can't
about
argue with somebody who's like there's just some people you can't argue with,
right, like,
no
and
matter what
I
the
don't
thing
mean
is
this
about.
in a disrespectful way at all, but there are people who have social media that are like borderline mentally disabled, who have like
Yeah,
actual cognitive disabilities, who like they just like for people who have a genetic or a biological like um inability to like or who have a lower cognitive ability, that's kind of where it gets tricky because back then, um, well, obviously, it's a whole another game. But I'm saying like when you have like traditional news or like speakers that you had to go see in person, it was typically people who were going that could understand and wanted to be there, right? People who had lower IQ or who had bigger issues or bigger problems. They were not going to see Abraham Lincoln, right? They weren't really. They kind of just went along with it or fought it or whatever. Now on social media, everyone could be vocal, right? So even people who literally have no idea what they're talking about, again, for a number of different reasons, um, may
they
have
could still
lower.
get on it. Like for example, psychopaths could easily, and they
Right.
do. There's a lot of psychopaths that
Exactly.
have a
Exactly.
following.
Right. Exactly. And the thing is, I'm all for free speech. Um, but it's in, like obviously sensible people are going to be able to sift through that. But people who are similar to those people, whether it be lower IQ, less intelligent, mental disorders, like you said, psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever it is, they're gonna join. So it's really a that's really the hardest thing I'm noticing is sifting through the truth and like trying to convince people that see the wrong information first, right? If you see the wrong information first when you're in like an impressionable state, whether it be your middle age, you just got divorced, your life's in the can, or you're a young kid who's on social media looking for to emulate, like whatever it is. If you see the wrong information first, it can be very tricky to like rewire that. Um, but I think again, as time goes on, the truth and evidence and science, it always does end up prevailing. So that's my hope. But I do kind of have to go. This has been a very long talk, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Um,
I appreciate your time as well. It was very
before,
insightful.
great, great. And before I let you go, did you have any other questions or any last things you wanted to say?
Uh, I don't know. I think this is what I'll do. Is what month is it right now? October.
Yeah,
Uh, for November, I will try out just completely what you said, taking out meat, vegetable, or meat, milk, cheese. I'll try taking that out for a month, and like if I don't see any like health problems or anything, like if I'm still getting the right amount of everything I need, then I'll continue that. If
absolutely.
not, I don't want to risk losing any more weight or anything, or losing any more appetite than I already have. I
No,
really,
look, and I totally hear you. I totally hear you. My thing is when it comes to products or food, think about your favorite foods, whether it's pastas, pizzas, rice and beans, whatever it is. Think about your favorite foods, and all you need to do, because most meals, most healthy meals are predominantly plant based, right? So let's say you love making burritos for dinner and you do tortilla, rice, salsa, um, guac, um,
beans.
beans, and then you
Yeah,
do beef, and then you do cheese, for example, right? All that needs to be done is you take out the beef and the cheese and you replace it with something of equal calories and or protein and or whatever you're getting from those, or you eat something extra, right? Because if you just take out the beef and the cheese and you don't replace the calories, you're going to lose weight. You're not going to feel good, right? So and that's what I'm saying. Like, before you jump into it, I applaud you for wanting to jump into it. And I of course, encourage people to go vegan as soon as possible. But because you've had such a poor experience in the past, before you jump into it, download that food tracker. It's called Chronometer. If you're able to, again, I don't know if you have
yeah, I
others
can.
like. Okay, okay. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to, but if you're able to, if you're comfortably able to track your food, put in different combinations of foods. It's even got a barcode scanner, so you could scan barcodes. It puts the nutrients right up there for you, um, and play around with meals. You know, make sure that your calories are equalized. Make sure that everything's good to go, and then do it. And I promise you, if you take that effort to do that, it's like scientifically impossible for you to feel worse unless you have a food intolerance. Like if you start adding in, like green beans, but green beans mess up your digestion, then yeah, obviously don't eat those. But other than that, the calories, the protein, if everything else is equal or the same, you should be good to go. And if you need help, reach out, man. Seriously, you definitely should be vegan. You sound like you should be vegan, but I understand. Again, you had a horrible experience, but we're here. I'm here to help. So let me know if you need help. But otherwise, it's a great talk, man. I appreciate us finally getting together.
Yeah, of course. Sorry again for the delays on the call,
No,
but
no worries. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're genuine, like you sound like a genuine guy, so no worries. It happens. Just at a certain point, it's like, all right, this guy just like avoiding on purpose or something. But yeah, no worries. I'm glad to hear you were actually interested, and
yeah,
I hope you go vegan. Please let me know. Keep me updated.
yeah. I try to go into arguments or debates or anything like that with an open mind. I think there's not really a point in going into one if you don't have an open mind.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even for me, like I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in God. But when I do see people, whether it's of the Christian faith, whether it's of the Muslim faith, whatever, I typically try and still talk to them. Like if, especially, or like I would talk to like if Mormons came up to me, I like have a conversation because it's still important. Like you never know, what you're gonna learn, and obviously like doesn't mean they're gonna change my mind if they don't have enough substance there. But it's, I mean, I'm after the truth, right? So if
Yeah,
like if you brought something to the table that I wasn't already aware of, or if you had something like that I honestly didn't have an answer to or I didn't know about, that's going to change my view because that's we can't be so emotionally invested in our views. We have to be able to like be fluid. Same thing with lab grown meat. Some people are against it just because they're against it, but that's ridiculous. Why would you be against something if it's going to aid our primary goal? As long as no sentient animals are harmed. You know what I mean?
yeah, I definitely get what you mean. There's a lot of
But
bad, not necessarily bad, but like there's some vegans that either make it everything about them. It's either entirely their personality, which is they use for something, or or they just don't know what they're talking about, which
yeah,
sometimes go hand in hand.
yeah, I
And
would say that.
that like turns people off from veganism is when like that's like everything, you know.
That's true. I mean, I would say that some vegans' personalities are a little off-putting, and they may have maybe not the most knowledge. Which I would say the
I feel
second
like
is worse than
anything
the
someone's
first.
passionate about with though, it's not necessarily just vegan. Like that can happen to anything someone's passionate with.
Yes, that was going to be my point. Yeah, it's not something just for veganism. It's anything. But I would say that like even in that case, yeah, I mean, I think those individuals should take the effort to learn more and be better speakers. But I'd still rather have somebody who's advocating for their more rights, but maybe are like weird and off-putting, versus somebody who's like totally cool and like you like being around them, but they're like advocating for like a genocide or so. You know what I mean? Like I'd still rather have
Yeah,
the off-putting person. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm that's something that I think we are aware of in the vegan community, but there's not much we can do. Like we just got to keep pushing in. Vegans do
yeah,
debate other vegans. Just so you know, I don't know. I don't know if you knew that. Vegans do debate other vegans about nuances and about approaches and about like. There's a lot of debate amongst other vegans. So we're trying. We're working on like sharpening our tools as well.
yeah. All right. Have a good day, man.
Thanks, man. You too. You too. And yeah, again, keep me if you need help. Don't hesitate to reach out. But otherwise, good luck, man.
Yeah, man. Of course. Have a good day.
You too.